Good day, Your Majesty. Can you tell us a bit about your life and reign as Pharaoh of Egypt?
Greetings, honored interviewer. I would be happy to speak with you about my life and reign.
Wonderful, thank you. Can you tell us how you became Pharaoh of Egypt?
I became Pharaoh of Egypt at a very young age after my father Akhenaten passed away. I was only 9 or 10 years old at the time, and I was not expected to rule on my own. Instead, a council of advisors helped me to govern the country while I learned the skills and knowledge required to be a pharaoh.
That must have been quite challenging for someone so young. Can you tell us about some of the accomplishments or challenges you faced during your reign?
Indeed, it was a difficult time for Egypt. My father's reign had been marked by significant changes to the country's religion and culture, and many people were unhappy with the direction he had taken. During my reign, I worked to restore traditional Egyptian religion and culture, and to rebuild the country's temples and monuments. One of my most significant accomplishments was the reopening of the temples at Karnak, which had been closed during my father's reign. I also oversaw the construction of several new buildings and monuments, including a temple dedicated to the god Amun.
That's quite impressive. Can you tell us about your famous tomb in the Valley of the Kings?
Ah, yes. My tomb in the Valley of the Kings is perhaps the most famous discovery in all of Egyptology. It was discovered by archaeologist Howard Carter in 1922 and contained a treasure trove of artifacts and treasures from my reign. The tomb was quite small compared to other royal tombs, which suggests that my death may have been unexpected or rushed. However, the treasures inside the tomb have provided valuable insight into the daily life and beliefs of ancient Egyptians.
Fascinating. Thank you for sharing that with us, Your Majesty. Is there anything else you would like to add about your life or reign?
Only that I am proud to have served as Pharaoh of Egypt, even if my reign was relatively short. I hope that my legacy will continue to inspire people for generations to come, and that Egypt will continue to flourish and thrive under the rule of its future pharaohs.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Your Majesty. Can you tell us a bit about your family and relationships with other pharaohs during your reign?
Of course. My father, Akhenaten, was a controversial pharaoh who is often associated with the worship of a single god, Aten, rather than the traditional pantheon of Egyptian deities. My mother, Queen Kia, was one of Akhenaten's wives, although her exact relationship to him is unclear. I also had a wife, Queen Ankhesenamun, who was my half-sister. Our marriage was not unusual for ancient Egyptian royalty, as it was believed that siblings of the royal family were pure enough to produce the next generation of rulers. In terms of my relationships with other pharaohs, I did not have much direct interaction with them during my short reign. However, I am believed to have been a successor to pharaohs like Akhenaten and Smenkhare, who ruled before me.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Your Majesty. Can you tell us about your relationship with your father, King Akhenaten, and his controversial reign?
My father is unclear, as he died when I was still a child. However, based on historical records and artifacts, it is believed that he had a significant impact on Egyptian society during his reign. Akhenaten is often associated with the worship of a single god, Aten, rather than the traditional pantheon of Egyptian deities. This was a major departure from the religious beliefs and practices that had been followed for centuries, and it caused a great deal of controversy and upheaval in Egyptian society. Despite the controversy surrounding his reign, Akhenaten's legacy has endured, and he remains an intriguing figure in ancient Egyptian history.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Your Majesty. Is there anything else you would like to add about your life or legacy?
Only that I am grateful for the opportunity to have served as Pharaoh of Egypt and to have left a lasting impact on the country's history and culture. I hope that future generations will continue to appreciate and learn from the legacy of ancient Egypt, and that the treasures and artifacts from my reign will continue to inspire awe and wonder for centuries to come.
Thank you, Your Majesty. One final question for you. Can you tell us about the role of religion in your life and in ancient Egyptian society?
Certainly. Religion played a crucial role in ancient Egyptian society, as it was believed that the gods and goddesses had the power to control every aspect of life, from the weather to the harvest to the success of military campaigns. The pharaohs were seen as intermediaries between the gods and the people, and they were responsible for maintaining Ma'at, the concept of balance and order in the universe. As for my own beliefs, I followed the traditional pantheon of gods and goddesses, and I performed the necessary rituals and ceremonies to honor them. I also commissioned the construction of temples and shrines dedicated to various deities, such as Amun, Ra, and Anubis.
Thank you, Your Majesty. It's fascinating to learn about the importance of religion in ancient Egyptian culture.
Indeed, religion was a central part of life in ancient Egypt, and it continues to inspire awe and fascination to this day. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts on this important topic.
Thank you for your time, Your Majesty. Before we conclude, can you tell us about your death and how you came to be buried in the Valley of the Kings?
Certainly. The circumstances of my death are unclear, but there are several theories that suggest I may have died from an illness or an injury. Some experts believe that I may have suffered from a genetic disorder that weakened my immune system, which could have made me more susceptible to infections and illnesses. As for my burial in the Valley of the Kings, this was a common practice for ancient Egyptian royalty. The Valley of the Kings was a hidden and protected location, which meant that the tomb would be less likely to be robbed or disturbed over time. My tomb was also filled with treasures and artifacts that were intended to help me in the afterlife.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Your Majesty. Your reign may have been short, but your legacy has endured for thousands of years. We are grateful for the opportunity to learn more about your life and contributions to ancient Egyptian culture.
It was my pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for your interest in my life and reign.